To be or not to be, that is the question.
In this part, I'll take the MakeHuman character we imported in part 1, add animation to them so they can walk around and do some jumping. Reloading from the file where we had done the face animation, remove the face animation and add some animation from BVH Mocap, which we can get available for free online. I'll use Eevee so it's more responsive for the animation. I need to unhide and show all bones so that I can delete all the keyframes from them before beginning. I play the animation to test to make sure all of the keyframes are actually removed. After removing all the keyframes, I press Alt-G to zero out the location data, because the last keyframe removed might have had a non-zero Z value, for example. Now I need to get mocap data, which will be used to animate the characters' arms, legs, and head and so on to make them look like they're moving realistically. The Carnegie Mellon University Graphics Lab has been so nice as to make their data sets available for free, so we can get animations of people moving in different categories. From the main website, there's a link to another website that has their data in the format that we're going to be using. Each of these files contains a number of animations with some notes. We won't need the notes, but it's nice to have multiple files all in one zip. I don't show it here in this video, but once I get the download, I open the zip file and copy the folders into my C tutorial CMU folder. The data that we just got from the CMU website will be imported as a BVH file, which creates an armature with the animation data on it. To make it simple, I choose the first folder and the first animation. This includes a hopping animation. The armature that's imported is way too big, but it's easy to scale down, and I have something that will help with that later on as well. With the scaling about right, I need to get into some of the fine detail. I'll create a keyframe of the armature with everything zeroed out. This makes it easier to match up the scale and the zero position of the armature that was imported with our animation and the armature that we want to put our animation onto. This is critical for the next step. The two armatures are lined up as closely as possible, and now the problem is they have slightly different orientations of the bones. I can solve this by running a script through the Automate MakeHuman to Blender add-on. First, I need to make sure that my MakeHuman armature is selected. Then I need to open up a text file that was included with the AMH2B release zip file. There's a ref_data folder that has two files. The CMU file has the text of the script that we want. After loading it into Blender's internal text editor, copy the name and then paste it into the armature adjust pose text box. Run it by pressing the button. The MakeHuman armature should now be in the same position as the CMU BVH armature. Tweak the CMU armature a little bit more to make it the right scale and location. I always forget this part, and I end up having to undo a few steps and go back to this. Snap the IK rig to our FK position, which was set by the script. The arm FK is a little bit messed up because the elbow points are in the wrong place, but the knees look just fine. This is how it should look before applying the next step. To get ready for retarget, I select all of the meshes that are bound to the armatures and the armature, and save a file as a backup, in case something was missed, like forgetting to snap the IK rig to the FK rig. A few operations are combined together through the lucky operation, like applying scale to the incoming animated rig before transferring it to the MakeHuman rig. A bridge rig is created in this process that we can hide and just ignore for the rest of this tutorial. I'll check the face panel and make sure that the face still moves correctly. Yeah, that looks okay. It's obvious that some extra bones have been added to the MakeHuman rig. These are the bones that are animated, and they will ultimately control the IK bones. If we go to the IK bones, we see that we can still move them independently. This will be very useful later on to make small changes to the animation, like movement of the hands so they don't clip into the body. Here I have to take a break and fix a problem that's been there since the beginning of the import. I need to add subdivision surface to all of the meshes. With a finer detail mesh, I can more easily see the effect of preserve volume from the armature modifier, which helps improve how the mesh looks at the arm and leg joints. There's a fast way to enable preserve volume on all of the selected objects with the Automate MakeHuman Blender add-on. In the armature panel, with preserve volume on, it fills out the shape at the elbows, and with it off, it makes it look more like a wet noodle. There's another modifier to be added to make the mesh look better, the corrective smooth modifier. This modifier needs to be at the correct place in the modifier stack or it will give an error. Drag it up one modifier slot at a time until it stops giving the error and things are good. With subdivision surface and enable preserve volume from the armature enabled, I can show how corrective smooth will change things for the better. Corrective smooth seems to make an improvement where there is some twisting of the mesh around an axis. And a few more places where I need to add subdivision surface. With all the meshes selected, I'll use Enable Preserve Volume one last time to make sure I got all of them. Now that I've seen how those modifiers can improve the mesh, I'm going to clean up a bit by resetting all the location, rotation, and scale data for those pose bones. It took a little while to set up, but now we can have a nice model to show the animation from the CMU website. Switching over to the dope sheet and the action editor part, see the animation that needs to be added back. Taking a quick look, I can see that the animation's up a little bit too far off the floor and it runs a bit slowly, but this can be fixed. Our animation is obviously more than 90 frames, so I'll have to switch over to timeline and give some more room for viewing. After using Automate MakeHuman to Blender's Lucky function, it's a bit difficult to work with all of the extra bones all in one mushed up skeleton space, so let's see them separately. The new bones in the MakeHuman armature will put into the first layer, so if I switch to that, select the default bones, which is just 2 in the first layer, then select the inverse, I can move all of the new bones to a separate layer for easy viewing. I don't remember which bone layers were enabled, so I'll go back to the Import MHX panel, which gives me a small panel to easily change the layer visibility. I only need root, spine, head, face, and arm and leg IK. The fingers aren't really needed with the CMU rig because it only has detail down to the hand, not including the fingers. Looking at the animation again, I see I have to change the time scale on it. So I'll have to go to the dope sheet and make some changes. But first, I have to make sure I have all of the animated bones selected. When I scale the keyframes, I need to be careful that my cursor is at 0, so I'm scaling at the right start point. After some testing, I found that 1/4 scale, or 0.25, is exactly right. Now the animation looks right. With the MakeHuman armature visible again, I'm going to fix up the bone layers with just the basic stuff that I need. With a side orthographic view, it's easy to get the character's feet positioned on the ground. And I run through the animation just to see that it looks right. Looks pretty good. The character and the scene are set up, so I need to place the camera in the scene to get a good render. Keeping it simple, I'll put the camera in a static position and watch the whole animation from one spot. One last save. And then render. The first half of the animation is rendered in Eevee, and the second half is in cycles. For the next part, I'll go back to a previous file and I'll add some motion capture animation from the Mixamo website. To get the most accurate animation on this character, I'm going to remove all of the data that's unnecessary except for the mesh and upload the mesh to the Mixamo website. And the website will generate an armature and animations for the armature. The website expects that the character mesh will be in a T-pose. I need to get a script file and then run a script to get the mesh into the right position. This text script file is included in the AMH2B release zip file in the ref data folder. With a copy of the name of the text, I paste the name into the box underneath the Adjust Pose button. Press Adjust Pose to use that script to automatically move all of the bones into the right position so we get our character in a T-pose. I'll start by going to the dope sheet and removing all the animation data from the MakeHuman armature. There are some shape keys on this mesh, which interferes with applying the armature. We need to be careful about what order we remove the data and make sure the armature is applied so that the T-pose is applied to the mesh and not just the armature. Going over to Object Data Properties, I can see the stuff I need to remove. Delete the shape keys first, but not the vertex groups, because that's what the armature uses. Go back to the modifiers and armature, then apply that, making sure that preserve volume is on so it looks better. Then apply the mask to the mesh, because we don't need that extra data that's covered by the clothing. If I delete the armature, I can see if there's anything else that needs to be fixed, and yes, the clothing needs a fix. The clothing doesn't have shape keys, so I can just apply the armature modifier to it. Some of these meshes aren't needed for the animation because it's going to be a full body animation not including the face, but it will include finger animation. After applying the armature modifier to the meshes, it's safe to delete all of those vertex groups that were used by the armature in order to move the mesh. And the UV maps are for the textures like the skin, but I don't need that for the animation, so I'll delete them too. And I join all the meshes together. I should have deleted the UV maps and vertex groups after this step. It would have been easier. Everything looks good, no extra data. Now I can save it. and export. In the File menu, I go down to Export and choose FBX. Choose the defaults, and save it out. Just to make sure that things worked out right in the export, I start a new Blender file and import it to check it. All looks good. Now I can go and upload it to the Mixamo website. Mixamo has a lot to offer, and all we need to do is give them an email so we can log in, and everything is free. There's a paid version for making mass amounts of characters, but we don't need that for this tutorial. The default character is a blue bot, but we can go to the characters menu and get a whole bunch of others. It's amazing how many are free. If ever I want to return to the default, I can just look up bot and choose Y bot for blue and X bot for red. Before I download any animations, I will upload the FBX that I just created, so it will get an automatic armature and the animation will be custom for that mesh. It's easy to just drag and drop the file to upload. I need to set a few points manually, and the automatic generator will do the rest. I'm using Mixamo's standard skeleton with 65 bones. The character model seems to animate well by default, so I'll choose it. Before applying any animation, I'll download the default and save that so I can re-upload later in case I need to get more animations after I've changed the character that's in Mixamo. Because for the free version, I only get one character available at a time. I choose T-pose instead of the default pose, but in our case it's actually the same thing. For the tutorial, I just need one animation, the walking animation, which can be looped. I chose the red bot because it seems to correspond to our female character. It's nice to have the options, but I'm just going to use 30 frames per second, the defaults, and with skin or with mesh, so I can check later to see if the mesh and the armature match up. Back to Blender, where I can reopen the eyes file and then take out the animation to replace it. I use the dope sheet to make sure I get all of the keyframes selected and deleted. In the dope sheet, I can specifically disable show only selected. The character is prepared. Now we can pull in the FBX file that came from Mixamo. It comes with a custom armature that needs to be retargeted to the MakeHuman rig. Import with defaults works just fine. Remove the mesh because I'm sure that the armature is the right size. I need to hide a few things to make sure I get all of the new mesh removed, and just the armature should remain. When I look at the small details of the armature, I can see it has an extra bone at the end of each branching, like at the end of each finger. This was added during the FBX import process. These extra bones can be deleted because they're not needed. The armature seems to be animating just fine. Before I apply the animation to the MakeHuman armature, I need to make sure it's in the same pose as the Mixamo armature, the T pose from earlier. I can do this quickly by using the script again. In the MHB panel, I go to the armature section and the adjust pose function. Paste in the name of the text block and use the function. There, easy. And the pose matches. Great. Before I use the lucky retarget function, I'll select everything, all the meshes attached to the armature that is, and I'll choose the MakeHuman armature last, and then save a copy just in case anything goes wrong during the process. And something I forgot to do, snap the IK for the arms and legs, and then fix it up before doing the retarget. This is important to do before using the lucky function, or else the inverse kinematics bones become mostly unusable afterward. Everything looks like it's in the right position. I'll save and then use the lucky retarget function. Just like before, I need to hide one of the armatures, the bridge armature. With the main armature selected, I'll show just the first bone layer, so I can separate the extra bones that were added. I select the two regular MakeHuman bones, root and master, press Ctrl-I to select the inverse, and then move those extra bones to their own bone layer. Back to the Import MHX panel to fix up the bone layer visibility. At first, the character won't animate. Go over to the dope sheet, the action editor, add the animation to this armature. I chose the wrong animation at first. It's the one that includes Mixamo in the name, obviously. Good, that works. To make it easier to see what I'm doing, I'll reduce the number of frames to 60. And to make the mesh look a little better, I'll make some corrections to it so it looks good during the animation. Preserve volume for all the armature modifiers. Add corrective smooth where needed. Remember to juggle corrective smooth in the modifier stack until the error disappears. Good smooth animation. Over in the nonlinear animation editor, when I push down the animation, it groups all of the keyframes into a unit. Before I go on and use this unit, I'll change the view to make it easy to see this character as they walk from left to right. In the nonlinear animation editor, I can bring up the strips panel and I can add some repeats to the animation that I pushed down previously. Action clip repeat 3 times will give me 3 copies of the same animation. If I didn't push down the keyframes and then use the action clip editor, then it would have been messy to copy and paste the keyframes 3 times in a row. I see I'm going to need some more space in the animation, so I'll just head over to the timeline and change it up again. The animation will repeat 3 times, and that's good. I could drag the object over after each third of this, and then it would look like it's moving continuously, but I do have another way to do it that's a bit faster. In the Automate MakeHuman to Blender panel, I have the ratchet hold function. To get set up, I'll find the frames where the character is jumping back to the original spot. The animation is 29 frames long, and it loops back at frame 30. I see that one foot is remaining still while the other is moving. I'll focus on that foot and add an empty to it so that I can use it as a ratchet point for the character's object. It's best to match the empty's position with the bone, so I'll set the cursor to the bone's position first, and the empty will be created at the cursor's location. Control Tab to leave the armature, then create the empty. And Control Tab to go back into the armature and parent the empty to the bone. A simple test is to just run a few frames forward and backwards and see if the empty follows the bone. And yes, it does. Looking in the AMHTB panel, in the animation section, I'll use the ratchet hold function with the empty selected first and the armature selected last. I need to run this only on frame 29 to make the character stay in position until frame 30. Next, I need to run this on frame 58 where it switches over. I have the empty left over from the last time, so I can just use that again. Previewing the result, I see an easy 3-loop animation. All looks fine until I bring back the original scene, and it looks like the person's walking right off of it. A quick fix is to go to the graph editor. In the graph editor, I can move all the frames vertically and make the character's movement slide along the floor till it looks like they're matching the floor as much as possible. Here I'll render a few frames to see how it looks. For the next little bit, I'll fast forward the video while I set up the camera to do another render. I'll save this file and then go over to the talk file because I want to transfer the talk animation from the previous video over to the walking to file. But I need to go into the talking file and adjust the animation and name it. With the armature selected and in the dope sheet, I'll disable show only selected so I can see all the keyframes, and also unhide the bone so I can make sure that I'm seeing everything. It looks like there are extras to be deleted from the blink track. The eye blink track. I know the mouth animation is only the first part, so I'll select that, then press Ctrl I to select inverse, delete the extras, and done. In the dope sheet, I'll switch it over to the action editor so I can name the animation, then back to the NLA editor where I can push down the animation and see it. At this point I have something I can import into another file. So I'll save it out and then go back to the walking to file. In the File menu, Append, I select the Talk1 file, then choose Action, then the action I just created. Naming the action makes it easy to find here. Here I might have goofed. I went to the NLA editor and I added a track, which might not have been necessary, but I think it was. I can take the action that I imported from the talking file and add it to the character. Push down the animation so I could use it later in the NLA editor. I need to bring back the animation for the character's object to make the walking loop animation on the character move forward. A quick test, and it looks okay. Here I take a moment to fix the missing subdivision surface modifiers. I have to add them manually now because I didn't select the option when I was importing the file. I'll save the file, check the render settings, and render it.
To be or not to be, that is the question.